You're listening to Surviving AI with Carlo Thompson. Last week, I got an email from a listener who is a project manager at a mid-sized consulting firm. His company just announced a strategic restructuring, which is corporate speak for cutting headcount. The listener isn't on the chopping block yet, but they know it's coming. With a mortgage, 2 kids, and they're terrified. They asked me, Carlo, I get that AI is coming for my job, but I can't just quit and become a prompting engineer overnight. I have real bills. What am I supposed to actually do right now? That question lands differently when you're the one asking it. Your job, whether it's stable right now or not, is your single point of failure. All your eggs in one basket. When that basket breaks, everything breaks. But there's a strategy that changes everything. It's not sexy, it won't make you rich, but it works. Today we're talking about the side business insurance policy. Let's get into it.
Artificial. System online.
You know, that email, it's so profound because it completely strips away all of those theoretical debates we're constantly hearing about automation and the future of work.
Right, exactly. The whole the utopian versus dystopian tech bro arguments on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Because it captures this exact visceral psychological state that, honestly, so many of you listening are trapped in right now.
It's a paralyzing space to be in.
It really is. It's that space between, knowing this massive disruption is happening, looking at the news every single day, and just feeling completely unequipped to survive it. All while, trying to maintain your current, very real, very heavy responsibilities.
Which is, that's the absolute crux of it. And that is the entire mission of our deep dive today. We are unpacking this surviving AI framework.
Right.
We're going to look at the hard data, pulling from the Bureau of Labor Statistics from Upwork's 2025 reports, McKinsey. But, more importantly, we have to translate that data into a specific action plan.
A concrete plan. Because data without action is just anxiety.
Totally. We're going to build a bulletproof $24,000 a year insurance policy.
Yeah.
And that's the critical reframing we really need to establish right out of the gate here. We are not talking about a lottery ticket.
No, not at all.
We are talking about an insurance policy.
Yeah, and to really grasp why we use that specific word, insurance, and why it matters so much to your mental health, we have to look at the underlying math of human survival in the modern economy.
Okay, let's break that down.
Let's do it practically. So the average American household has about $5,000 in monthly expenses.
Right.
Now, obviously, that number includes everything. It includes the variable stuff, dining out, the Netflix subscriptions, vacations, whatever. But if you strip that budget all the way down to the studs, like the absolute non-negotiable basic living costs.
Survival number.
Exactly. Right. The rent or the mortgage, the basic groceries to feed your kids, the utilities, the essential health coverage, you are looking at roughly $3,500 a month.
Which, if you're sitting at a desk right now and your main job provides 100% of your income, that $3,500 number is terrifying to think about.
It's a literal sword hanging over your head.
Yeah.
It's a ticking clock because if that single point of failure breaks, if that restructuring actually hits your department, that $3,500, it doesn't stop.
No, the bank still wants the mortgage.
It demands to be paid. And if you have some savings or, maybe a small severance package, you're just watching that number drain from your account month by month. You might have 2 months of runway.
Right. Maybe 3 if you are exceptionally frugal and eat rice and beans.
Right. But let's change one single variable in that equation. Let's say you build a side business that generates just $2,000 a month.
Just $2,000. I want to emphasize that. Not $10,000. Not enough to, buy a private island or quit society. $2,000.
Yes. Because $2,000 a month covers 57% of those basic non-negotiable expenses.
57%. Let's just pause and let that math sink in for a second for everyone listening.
It's huge.
Because I really think when people hear the phrase side business, their brains immediately jump to these 2 extreme ends of the spectrum, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like the first extreme is that Silicon Valley delusion. You think, okay, I'm going to invent the next big SaaS platform, get millions in venture capital, and become a billionaire.
The lottery ticket.
Exactly, the lottery ticket mentality. And that is it's exhausting just to contemplate when you're already tired.
Right.
And then the other extreme is like the desperation gig. You think, well, I have to do exhausting midnight delivery drives or, assemble furniture for strangers on the weekends, completely ruining my sleep and my health for literal pennies.
which nobody wants to do.
No. So I have to be the skeptic here for a minute. If I have a mortgage, 2 kids, and a highly stressful day job where I'm already giving 50 hours a week,
Yeah.
a second job sounds like a fast track to a complete physical breakdown. Is this just going to be a second soul-crushing job?
Yeah. And that is the exact fear we have to dismantle right now. Because if it ruins your health, it is fundamentally a bad strategy.
Right.
This is not about hustle culture. I can't stress that enough. It is not about grinding yourself into dust. It's strategic risk management.
Okay. Unpack that.
Think about the car insurance you already pay for every month. You don't buy an auto policy because you hope you get into a crash so you can get rich from the payout, right?
No, obviously not.
You buy it so that if a disaster happens on the highway, you aren't financially ruined for the next decade. That $2,000 a month does something profound to your psychology. It shifts you from sheer panic to strategic maneuvering.
Walk me through that psychological shift, though. Like, what does that actually feel like on a Tuesday morning when the layoff rumors start circulating at the office?
Okay, so without the insurance policy, you are in pure survival mode. Your heart rate spikes. You start agreeing to unreasonable demands from your boss because you are absolutely terrified of being the one cut.
You become a yes man out of fear.
Exactly. But if you have that $2,000 floor beneath you, if you lose that main job, your severance or your savings that used to cover a terrifying 2 months of runway, suddenly that stretches to 6 months or even 8 months.
Because you only have to cover that $1,500 gap out of your savings, not the full $3,500.
Precisely.
That is a massive difference in leverage. 6 months of runway means you don't have to take the very first desperate lowball job offer that comes your way just to keep the lights on.
Right. You can actually negotiate. You can take a breath. You can interview strategically for a role you actually want. You remain a strategic player in your own career rather than just a desperate victim of circumstance.
Your whole posture in meetings changes. You stop operating out of fear.
Exactly. But to make this work, to actually capture that $2,000, we have to pull back a bit and look at the macroeconomic reality. Because the immediate pushback I always hear from people is, well, am I too late? Is the market already completely saturated?
Which is exactly my thought. Yeah. I mean, everyone and their mother seems to have a side gig right now. The internet is just flooded with people offering services. If you're listening to this and you're just starting out today, how on earth are you supposed to compete?
Let's look at the actual data. And this is a number you really need to sit with. 37% of the U.S. workforce are already doing some form of alternative work.
37%.
Yeah. That is 60 million people, according to Upwork's 2025 report.
Wow. Okay, but wait, doesn't that prove my point? I mean, if 60 million people are doing it, the market is completely flooded, right?
Actually, it proves the exact opposite, because the gig economy as a whole is now worth $1.7 trillion annually.
Trillion, with a T.
With a T. What that tells us is that the infrastructure for paying independent contractors, freelancers, and side business owners is completely fundamentally normalized now.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, like think about 10 years ago. If you pitched a local business on a freelance service, they didn't even know how to classify you. Their accounting department would completely freak out over how to do the taxes.
They'd want to put you on payroll or just say no.
Right, but today, businesses are completely used to this. They actively budget for independent contractors. The friction of hiring someone outside the traditional W-2 employee structure is entirely gone. The plumbing is already in place.
So you aren't fighting to create a new category of labor?
No, you're just stepping into a massive, heavily funded river that is already flowing.
Okay, so the pie is huge, the financial plumbing is in place, but we are talking specifically about surviving AI here, and this is where I really have to push back on behalf of the listener.
Go for it.
What if you aren't a tech genius? What if you are that project manager from the email, or, an HR professional or a logistics coordinator for a trucking company? I look at this massive market and I just assume it's entirely reserved for software developers, the people who can actually write Python scripts and code machine learning models. Is this strategy only for the technical elite?
That is the beautiful counterintuitive reality of this exact moment in time. No, in fact, the software developers are very often the absolute worst people to capture this specific market.
Wait, really? Why?
Because they are way too deep in the weeds of the code to see the actual business applications. They want to build complex, bespoke systems from scratch that take 6 months. Let's look at the McKinsey 2024 data. 50% of businesses are actively experimenting with AI right now, but They lack in-house expertise.
Let me guess how that experimentation actually goes. The owner of a mid-sized roofing company buys a $20 subscription to ChatGPT. They ask it to write a marketing email for like a spring promotion. And the AI spits out something that sounds like a corporate robot swallowed a thesaurus.
Exactly.
And the owner says, "This is garbage. My customers don't talk like this." And they just cancel the subscription and go back to doing it manually.
Precisely. They have access to the raw tools, but they do not have the bridge. The gap between this magical technology exists on a server somewhere, and this technology actually solves a specific painful friction point in my daily operations. That gap is the literal market opportunity.
The bridge is the product.
Yes. The AI consulting market is projected to hit $100 billion by 2030, and it's growing at nearly 29% annually.
But again, I'm the project manager driving to work right now. I hear the phrase AI consulting market, and I immediately think of massive, towering firms. I think of, Accenture or Deloitte sending a team of 20 people in suits to a Fortune 500 company and charging $4 million. How does a single person working out of their guest bedroom for 10 hours a week tap into a $100 billion market?
Because the Fortune 500 companies already have Deloitte. But small and mid-sized businesses, which are the absolute backbone of the economy, they are in absolute chaos regarding AI.
Right. They don't have Deloitte money.
Exactly. Think about a local dental practice with 3 dentists, or a regional accounting firm, a mid-sized commercial landscaping company. They read the exact same news you do. They know they need to adapt, or they'll be left behind by competitors who figure it out.
Yeah, the fear is universal.
But they absolutely cannot afford a $150,000 a year full-time chief AI officer.
Right.
And frankly, they don't need one. They don't need a theoretical 60-page white paper on the future of machine learning. They desperately need a $2,000 implementer.
An implementer. Tell me what that word means in this specific context.
It means someone who comes in and says, "I see your front desk staff is spending 10 hours a week manually copying and pasting new client data from your website inquiry emails into your CRM system."
Which is happening everywhere, by the way.
Everywhere. And you tell them it's causing typos, it's slowing down your response time, and your leads are going cold. I am going to connect this off-the-shelf AI tool to this simple automation tool, and that entire process will happen instantly, perfectly, every single time. It is entirely about implementation, not coding. It's about identifying business friction and applying a ready-made solution. You are just the bridge.
Okay, the verified demand is clearly there. That gap makes total sense. But what does that actually look like in practice? Because, theory is great, but we need concrete vehicles here. What specific models can you, the listener, use to capture that $2,000 a month without quitting your day job? Let's get into the actual business models that are proven to work right now.
So there are 3 distinct proven models that fit this exact criteria. The first category is exactly what we were just touching on, AI implementation services. This is generalist consulting, but it is highly aggressively practical. You are using off-the-shelf, incredibly user-friendly tools like ChatGPT for the text generation, Zapier or Make for the automation, Airtable for the database, and you use these to fix specific operational bottlenecks: bookkeeping ingestion, customer intake, lead qualification.
Let's pause right here, because if a listener is not highly technical, you just threw out words like Zapier and Airtable, and their eyes might have just completely glazed over.
Fair enough.
Let's demystify the mechanism here. How do these tools actually work together without needing to write a single line of code?
Okay, think of it like an office from the 1990s. Airtable is just a really modern, highly organized digital filing cabinet. ChatGPT is a brilliant but literal-minded intern who can read documents and summarize them instantly. And Zapier is the mailroom clerk who runs back and forth between different departments.
I love that analogy.
Right. You don't need to know how to physically build the filing cabinet. You don't need to know how the intern's brain works. You just need to know how to give the mailroom clerk clear instructions.
So what does that instruction look like?
You literally tell Zapier, hey, every time a new email comes in from a potential client, take it to the intern. Have the intern extract the client's name, their phone number, and what kind of problem they have. Then take that summary and put it in the correct folder in the filing cabinet. That is an automation. You build it visually, literally just dragging and dropping boxes on a screen.
Okay, that makes it incredibly accessible. Now, the margins on this kind of service must be insane, right?
Yeah.
Because what are your actual costs? You aren't buying physical materials or renting a storefront.
Your cost of goods sold is essentially zero. You might pay, $30 a month for a software subscription. The margins are near 100%.
Wow.
You are selling your ability to connect the dots and solve the headache. A typical engagement in this space for a small business is $2,000 to $5,000 for a single project. And for you, once you understand how to instruct that digital mailroom clerk, it might take you 8 to 12 hours of actual work to build, test, and deploy the solution.
Let me play this out to make sure I understand the reality of it. You find a business, let's say a busy property management company. You identify a manual process that's eating their time, maybe processing maintenance requests from tenants.
Great example.
You quote them, say, $3,000. You spend your Saturday morning and a couple of Tuesday evenings setting up the Zapier integration and testing the ChatGPT prompts to categorize those maintenance requests by urgency. You deploy it. And you just made $3,000 for roughly 10 hours of highly focused work.
Exactly. And within this first category, the real power comes when you specialize. You don't just be a generic AI guy. You become the AI implementer specifically for regional dental practices.
Because then you aren't reinventing the wheel every time.
Exactly. Because once you learn their specific industry software like Dentrix and you solve their specific intake problems for one office, you own the blueprint. Or, you could run an AI content agency on a $2,000 to $5,000 monthly retainer. You generate and refine all of a company's localized marketing, their blog posts, their social media using AI tools, but you provide the human quality control to make sure it doesn't sound like a robot.
That makes total sense. You're basically selling them their own time back, and you're selling them consistency. Okay, so that is model one, implementation. What's the second model?
The second model is a fascinating pivot. It's what we call protected service businesses.
Protected from what? From AI taking it over?
Yes, protected from automation, because the core value proposition to the client is human judgment, human relationships, or physical world coordination. AI does all the heavy lifting, the routine background work, the data processing, but the human is the protective moat. The client is paying for the human element.
And I really need a concrete example of this. How does AI power a human moat?
Let's talk about a dispatch service for home contractors. Plumbers, HVAC technicians, electricians. Think about the reality of a plumber's day. They are out on a job site. They are literally under a sink. Their hands are covered in grease. They're wrestling with a pipe. Their phone rings. It's a new lead, a potential $5,000 repiping job. But they can't answer it.
Right, they can't just drop the pipe.
Or they get a text and they try to reply with wet hands and they forget to follow up. They are dropping the ball constantly because they are doing the physical work.
Which is incredibly frustrating for them because they are literally bleeding potential revenue every time that phone rings and goes to voicemail.
Exactly. So you step in and run a protected service. You set up a system where an AI handles the absolute initial text message intake from their website or their Google ads. The AI asks the customer, is this an emergency? What is the issue? It categorizes the urgency. But then, and this is the moat, you, the human, step in.
Okay, so you take over.
Right. You look at the AI triage dashboard. You make the actual phone call to the stressed homeowner. You provide empathy. You say, I understand your basement is flooding. We will have someone there at 2 p.m. You manage the schedule. You handle the complex judgment calls that AI cannot reliably make. You are saving that contractor 5 to 10 hours a week of absolute chaos.
And more importantly, you're catching those $5,000 leads that were previously going to their voicemail and then calling a competitor. If you save a busy plumber 5 hours of stress and capture just one big job a month they would have missed, they will gladly pay you $1,000 or $1,500 a month on retainer.
Easily. Because you aren't an expense at that point, you are a revenue protector.
That's a great way to put it.
Another excellent example in this protected category is highly specialized consulting. Let's say you've spent 15 years in supply chain logistics or, complex HR compliance. You have deep, hard-earned industry knowledge. You can charge $150 to $300 an hour for your consulting. You use AI behind the scenes to do the tedious research, to format the reports instantly, to analyze massive data sets in seconds.
But the client isn't paying for the AI.
No. They are paying for your specific battle-tested judgment on what to do with that data. Educational courses fit here perfectly, too. People want to learn a skill from a human they trust, even if AI helped write the curriculum.
Okay, so model one is building the AI tools and handing them over to businesses. Model two is keeping the AI behind the curtain to supercharge your own highly human, trust-based service. What's the third model?
The third is AI-enhanced traditional. These are proven, older, sometimes boring business models that get a massive throughput boost from AI. We are talking about things like e-commerce. or very traditional local freelance services like resume writing, graphic design, or bookkeeping.
Walk me through the mechanism of how AI changes a traditional freelance gig like resume writing, because that sounds like a very crowded market already.
It is crowded, but AI changes the math of your time entirely.
Right.
Historically, if you were a freelance resume writer, maybe you could complete 2, maybe 3 high-quality resumes a week. Why? Because of the manual labor. You have to interview the client, read their old disjointed resume, research the specific industry they're applying to, write a first draft, edit it, format it. It takes hours.
Yeah, it's a massive time sink.
But now, you take their old resume and the specific job description they want. You feed both into an AI. You instruct the AI to cross-reference their work history against the specific keywords required in that target job description. The AI instantly generates a heat map of what is missing and writes a highly targeted first draft.
It does all the manual heavy lifting.
Exactly. The human, you still has to review it, refine the tone, and make sure it doesn't sound artificial. You bridge the gap. But a process that used to take 6 hours now takes 45 minutes. Suddenly, without raising your costs and without working more hours, you can process 10 to 15 resumes a week instead of 2.
So I'm not inventing a new wheel. I'm just taking an existing cart that has proven demand, and I am strapping a jet engine to it. It is a huge relief. I don't have to be a visionary.
Not at all.
But, and this is where it gets daunting for the listener, how do you know which cart to pick? Because if I'm listening to this right now, I'm thinking, okay, dispatch for plumbers sounds like a cool niche. AI intake for dentists sounds incredibly lucrative. E-commerce sounds fun and creative. I have limited time. I have real bills. How do I choose a path without wasting 6 months of my life going down a blind alley?
That brings us to the most critical, unforgiving part of this entire strategy.
Yeah.
You need a ruthless filter.
A filter?
Yes. Because out of all the possible options in the world, we have to separate an actual, reliable insurance policy from a time-wasting distraction. To do this, we use the 5 non-negotiable launch criteria. It is a strict checklist. If your idea does not hit all 5 of these criteria, you do not pursue it, period. You kill the idea and move to the next one.
I love a rigid, ruthless filter. It takes all the emotion out of the decision. Let's go through them. What is criterion number 1?
Criterion number 1. Low startup costs. Specifically, it must cost under $2,000 to launch.
Why that specific number? Why $2,000?
Because of the entire premise of the show today. If you have to take out a small business loan or drain your family's emergency savings or borrow money from your 401k to start this side business, it is no longer an insurance policy. It is a massive new liability.
Right, you're just adding stress.
The point of insurance is to decrease your overall life risk, not multiply it. You might need to buy a domain name, a basic website template, a few monthly software subscriptions like Zapier or ChatGPT+, maybe basic legal filing fees depending on your state. That should cost a few $100. If an idea requires $10,000 in inventory, you walk away immediately.
That makes perfect sense. Keep the stakes incredibly low so a failure doesn't ruin you. Number 2.
Criteria number 2. Flexible hours. The business model must be entirely executable in 10 to 20 hours a week, and crucially, it must be executable on your own schedule.
Okay, let's inject a heavy dose of reality here. Let's really stress test this. Can you actually run a legitimate business, deal with clients, deliver real professional value, and get paid thousands of dollars in just 10 to 15 hours a week? And can you do it without burning out at your main job? Because we said it earlier, the main job pays the mortgage right now. You cannot let your performance slip.
It is entirely possible, but only if you respect the architecture of your time. You absolutely cannot do this by randomly checking side business emails on your phone while you are sitting in a Zoom meeting for your day job.
Oh, that's the worst.
That context switching destroys your performance at work, it destroys the quality of your side business, and it rapidly destroys your sanity. You need dedicated, fiercely protected blocks of time.
Give me a sample schedule of what that looks like for, say, a parent with a full-time job.
You map out 2 3-hour evening blocks, let's say Tuesday and Thursday nights. The kids go to bed at 8 p.m. From 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., you are locked in your office or at the kitchen table. That is 6 hours. Then 1 4-hour block on the weekend, maybe Saturday morning, from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. before the weekend chores really begin. That is 10 hours of highly focused, uninterrupted execution, no day job bleed over.
Right.
The main job must always come first. Therefore, if a side business idea demands that you are available to answer a client phone call at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, it fails the filter.
Right. It has to be asynchronous work, like building automations, or it has to fit exactly into your specific blocks. If it demands real-time, daytime availability, kill the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, criterion 3.
Criterion 3, it must leverage your existing skills.
This one feels huge. Explain why this is a deal breaker.
It is crucial for a fast, viable launch. Remember, we are building insurance, not discovering a new passion. If you are an HR professional who has spent the last 10 years understanding compliance and recruiting pipelines, do not try to start a direct-consumer e-commerce brand selling custom sneakers on TikTok.
Because you have zero structural advantage there.
Exactly. You are starting from absolute zero against people who have been doing e-commerce for a decade. It will take you a year just to learn the basics. If you are an HR professional, start an AI-enhanced recruiting intake service for local manufacturing businesses. Use the deep domain knowledge, the jargon, the understanding of pain points that you already spent 10 years acquiring. Apply AI to the skills you already possess. If an idea requires you to spend 6 months learning a completely new foundational skill from scratch, it is not an insurance policy. It's a hobby.
Okay. Low cost, flexible hours, leverages existing skills. We have 2 left. Number 4.
Criterion 4, a clear mathematical path to $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
Meaning you can't just cross your fingers and hope the math works out.
Yeah.
You have to prove it on paper first.
Yes. You have to be able to map the unit economics realistically. If you want to start a side business where you charge clients $20 for a small digital service, you would need 100 clients every single month to hit $2,000.
Good luck with that.
Right. Is it realistic to acquire 100 new clients, process their orders, and manage their customer support within your strict 10-hour weekly block? Absolutely not. You will fail. But if you charge $2,000 for a custom AI implementation project for a local business, you only need to acquire and fulfill 1 client a month, or maybe 2 clients on a $1,000 monthly retainer. That is a clear, manageable path.
Which perfectly sets up the final, and maybe most important, criterion.
Criterion 5. It must be scalable without a proportional time increase.
Meaning you absolutely cannot get trapped trading your time for money indefinitely.
Precisely. If the only way to grow your revenue from $2,000 to $4,000 is to work 20 hours instead of 10, you're going to hit a wall very, very fast. You don't have 20 hours. There has to be a mechanism built into the business model for leverage. That leverage can come through software automation, where the AI tool is doing the heavy lifting regardless of volume. It can come through productizing your service, meaning you build a specific intake system for one dentist, and then you sell the exact same cloned system to 10 other dentists, so the delivery takes a fraction of the time. Or it comes through value pricing, which we will dive into later.
Okay, I want to run a practical test on this filter. Because theory is clean, but reality is messy. Let's contrast a massive failure with a massive success using these 5 criteria. Give me an idea that sounds amazing in a YouTube ad, but completely fails the filter.
Let's run a very common hustle through the filter, writing SEO blog articles for businesses at 10 cents a word. You see this advice everywhere.
Oh, all the time.
Let's test it. Criterion 1, low startup cost. Yes, all you need is a laptop. Criterion 2, flexible hours. Yes, you can write at midnight. Criterion 3, existing skills. Sure, assuming you are a decent writer. Criterion 4, clear path to $2,000 a month. Let's do the math. At 10 cents a word, to make $2,000, you need to write 20,000 words a month. That's practically a short novel.
You have to write a novel every single month in your spare time.
Exactly. And now look at Criterion 5. Scalable without proportional time increase. Absolute catastrophic failure. Every single new dollar you earn requires new manual typing on a keyboard. You will need 40 to 50 hours a week to hit your goal. It completely violates the premise of the insurance policy. It is just a grueling, low-paying second job.
Okay, now contrast that with something that actually survives the gauntlet. What passes?
Let's go back to AI implementation consulting for regional law firms. Building an automated intake system. Low startup costs. Yes. A couple of software subscriptions under $100. Flexible hours. Yes, you map their systems and build the automations in your Tuesday and Thursday evening blocks. Existing skills. If you are the project manager from a listener email who understands complex workflows and stakeholder management, absolutely. Clear path to $2,000 a month. Yes, that is literally just one project fee. Scalable without proportional time. Yes, because once you perfect the automated intake architecture for law firm A, you can deploy the exact same architecture for law firm B in a quarter of the time. It passes all 5 criteria flawlessly.
That is incredibly clarifying.
Yeah.
When you force an idea through that filter, all the noise just disappears. So let's assume the listener has an idea that passes the filter. They have a validated vehicle. But having a car doesn't mean you know how to drive it, and it certainly doesn't mean you know the route. How does the listener actually execute this? How do they sequence the actions without getting overwhelmed and quitting their day job in frustration? What is the actual timeline?
We use a strict, structured 6-month milestone framework. This timeline is designed specifically to prevent the most common trap, using administrative tasks to avoid the terrifying work of actually talking to the market.
Walk me through month 1. What is the absolute first step?
Month 1 is the most important phase of the entire process. It is also the one that almost everyone tries to skip. Month 1 is entirely, exclusively about validation.
Validation. Define what that means in terms of what you do and, more importantly, what you do not do.
Validation means proving that someone will actually pay for this before you build it. It means you do not build a website. You do not design a logo on Canva.
Do not spend 3 weeks picking up brand colors.
Do not print business cards. Do not file for an LLC. Your only job, your only metric of success in month 1 is to talk to 10 to 15 potential customers.
Talk to them. How? And what are you actually saying to them? Because if you haven't built anything, what are you even pitching?
You aren't pitching a finished product. You are asking a very simple, targeted question. Do you actually care about this problem? You reach out to people in your existing network, or you send direct messages on LinkedIn and you say, "Hi, Sarah, I'm exploring a new service that uses AI to automate client intake. Based on my research, this usually saves small firms about 5 hours a week of administrative work and prevents lost leads. Is this a friction point you are currently experiencing in your business?"
Okay, but let's deal with the psychological reality of doing that. For someone who has been a W-2 employee their whole life, sending that message feels like being a telemarketer. It feels incredibly vulnerable. What if you send those 15 texts in month 1 and they all say they don't care? Or they politely brush you off with, "No, we have a receptionist who handles that. We're fine."
If that happens, if the market rejects the premise you celebrate.
Celebrate. You just failed.
You didn't fail. You gathered hyper-valuable data. You just saved yourself 5 months of agonizing work. Think about the alternative. You spend $2,000 on a website. You spend weekends setting up complex software. You officially launch, and then you find out nobody wants it.
That would be devastating.
Validation costs absolute nothing but a tiny, temporary bruise to your ego. If the market says no, you kill the idea immediately, you return to the filter, and you pick the next idea.
That is a massive mental flip. A no isn't a failure. It's a protective mechanism. It saves you hundreds of hours. Okay, let's assume the opposite. Let's say out of those 15 messages, 6 of them reply and say, "Actually, yes, client intake is a total nightmare right now. My staff is overwhelmed, and we are definitely dropping leads." You are validated. The pain is real. What happens in month 2?
Month 2 is refinement. You take that broad validation and you narrow the niche. You realize that general client intake is too broad of a pitch, but client intake specifically for family law attorneys hits a very specific, highly profitable nerve. In month 2, your singular goal is to secure your first 3 actual paying clients. Very often, these first clients are the exact same people who validated your idea in month 1. You go back to them and offer a discounted beta price to get them on board while you build the system alongside them.
Got it. You build the parachute after you jump, but you got them to agree to jump with you. Month 3.
Month 3 is systems. Now that you have 3 clients, you are going to start feeling the operational friction. You will realize that you are doing things manually for each client that desperately need to be standardized. If you don't fix this, you will blow past your 10-hour weekly limit. This is the month where you pause taking new clients and you build your internal machine, you finalize your sales script, you create a rigid onboarding checklist, you standardize your delivery process so that onboarding client number 4 takes half the time it took to onboard client number 1.
You fortify the house. Okay, month 4.
Month 4 is growth. You have 3 happy clients. You have a smooth internal system that you know can handle more weight. Now you turn on the outbound engines. You leverage LinkedIn content. You actively ask your current 3 clients for warm referrals. You start aggressively prospecting because you have the confidence that your system won't break when new business arrives.
Month 5.
Month 5 is scale. This is where you aggressively decouple your time from your revenue. You look at the data from your first few projects. You realize you are delivering massive value, so you raise your prices for all new clients. Or You fully productize the service, meaning you sell a standardized, rigid package rather than custom consulting, which drastically reduces your fulfillment time.
Which brings us to the end of the framework, month 6.
Month 6 is the decision point. If you have followed the framework, you are now steadily hitting that $2,000 to $3,000 monthly mark, and you are doing it within your time boundaries. You look at the business, you look at your life, and you make a choice. Do I maintain this exact level of operation? Do I keep it strictly as my safety net, my insurance policy, or do I see the potential here to scale this up and eventually make it my full-time career?
And the beauty is either answer is perfectly fine, because you hold the power now. The leverage is entirely yours. But I want to circle back to a phrase you used in month 5. You talked about decoupling time from revenue. You have this foundational metric you use called revenue per hour. Can we dive deep into this? Because I think this is the absolute deadliest trap that freelancers fall into when they start out. They focus entirely on the top-line number and ignore the cost of their time.
This is arguably the most vital mathematical concept of the entire insurance strategy. If the listener takes nothing else away from today, I want them to hear this clearly.
Okay, let's pause. We are going to let the math sink in here. Walk us through it.
Let's say you build a side business and it generates $2,000 a month in gross revenue. But because your systems are poor or you chose a bad model, you are working 50 hours a month to generate that money. Making $2,000 a month on 50 hours of work is not a business. It is just a second job where you are making $40 an hour.
$40 an hour. Which, listen, extra money is extra money, but if you already work a demanding day job, $40 an hour for 50 extra hours a month is an absolute grind.
It is a grind that will inevitably lead to burnout. And worse, that exhaustion will start to threaten your performance at your main job, which defeats the entire purpose of the insurance policy. You are risking the primary income for a meager side income. But let's look at the alternative. Making $2,000 a month, but doing it on just 10 hours of highly leveraged work is $200 an hour.
$200 an hour. That is a completely different paradigm.
That is true insurance. Time efficiency matters significantly more than raw total revenue. If someone comes to me and boasts, I make $5,000 a month on my side hustle, but they admit they work 40 hours a week on nights and weekends to do it, they don't have an insurance policy. They have chained themselves to 2 full-time jobs. The ultimate goal is the high revenue per hour, because that is the only way to protect your most valuable finite asset, your physical and mental energy.
That is such a powerful distinction. It is not just about the gross number. It is entirely about the denominator, the time. To make those 10 hours actually yield $200 an hour, you have to do 2 things flawlessly. You have to price your services correctly, and you have to avoid getting bogged down in administrative quicksand. Let's move into section 5, pricing, legals, and avoiding the complexity trap.
Yes. Let's tackle the complexity trap first, because when smart, capable, professional people decide to start a side business, they very often use complex administrative tasks as a form of productive procrastination.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know people who do this. They say, I can't possibly talk to a potential customer until my LLC paperwork is filed with the state, my branding guidelines are finalized, and I have a professional headshot for my website. It's a way to feel busy without facing the fear of rejection.
Exactly. The immediate question is always, don't I need an LLC before I talk to anyone? What if I get sued? What about liability?
Well, let's answer that directly. Don't you need an LLC?
No. Complexity is the absolute enemy of execution. When you are in month 1 or month 2 and your revenue is 0, you do not need an LLC. You do not need a trademark. You do not need a 20-page custom contract drafted by a lawyer. You start as a sole proprietor. That is the default legal structure in the United States. You just do business under your own name.
If you are deeply concerned about liability because of the specific nature of the work you are doing, you can buy a basic professional liability insurance policy, often called errors and omissions insurance, for about $300 a year. But do not spend weeks filling out state paperwork and paying filing fees when you haven't even proven that someone wants to buy what you are selling.
Keep it incredibly lean. So when do you actually upgrade the legal structure? You upgrade to an LLC when you cross about $50,000 a year in revenue, or when you are signing a contract with a massive client whose specific vendor risk profile demands that you are an incorporated entity. Until then, stay fast and lean. However, while we are keeping the legal side simple, there are 2 absolute non-negotiable rules on the financial side from day 1. First, you must open a separate bank account, even if it is just a second personal checking account at your current bank to start with. Every single dollar of business income goes into that account. Every single business expense, software, advertising, internet comes out of that account. Do not ever mix it with the checking account you use to buy groceries.
Because if you mix them, come tax time, you're going to be crying while sorting through thousands of transactions.
It is an accounting nightmare. Keep a clean wall between them.
And speaking of tax time, here's the second non-negotiable financial rule. You must aggressively save 30% of every single payment you receive for estimated taxes. 30%. Ouch. That physically hurts to hear. If I close a $2,000 deal, I want to feel like I have $2,000.
I know it hurts. But it hurts significantly worse next April when the IRS wants their cut. You haven't saved anything, and you've already spent the money on a vacation. When that $2,000 check clears into your separate bank account, $600 immediately that same day gets transferred into a hidden savings account labeled taxes. You do not touch it. You operate the business strictly on the remaining $1,400. This is a non-negotiable habit for survival.
Okay, we have a lean legal structure, a separate bank account, and a ruthless 30% tax holdback. Now, how do we actually get the big money into that account in the first place? We have to talk about pricing strategy. Because if I am the listener and I am used to making, say, $50 an hour at my corporate day job, my immediate, deeply ingrained W-2 instinct is to calculate my side business rates the exact same way. I will think, okay, this project will take me 10 hours, my time is worth $50 an hour, so I will charge $500.
And that deeply ingrained instinct will absolutely guarantee that you fail to reach your revenue per hour target. You will trap yourself in a low-wage cycle. Most people massively underprice their side services because they are trapped in the psychology of their salary rate. They think about what their time is worth to them rather than what the solution is worth to the business owner.
Explain the mechanism behind that difference. Why is charging hourly a trap?
If you sell hours, you are putting yourself in direct conflict with your client. The client is always going to try to minimize your hours to save themselves money. They will question your timesheets. And more importantly, you are physically capped by the clock. You only have 10 hours a week. If you charge $50 an hour, the absolute maximum you can ever make is $500 a week. But if you shift to value pricing, the entire mathematical universe changes. Let's go back to our example of the chaotic home contractor, the plumber. If his terrible manual intake process is causing him to lose 2 premium plumbing jobs a month because leads fall through the cracks, that might be costing his business $10,000 a month in lost gross revenue.
Easily. 10 grand just evaporating because he couldn't text back in time.
If you come in not as an hourly worker but as a consultant and you say, I have analyzed your workflow, I will build and maintain an AI-driven intake and dispatch system that prevents these specific high-value leads from ever falling through the cracks again. You are solving a $10,000 a month problem. If you quote a flat project fee of $2,000 for that solution, it is a massive no-brainer bargain for them. They will make that money back on the very first lead your system catches.
And the beautiful part is, the client doesn't care if it takes you 80 hours or 8 hours to build it. They just want the result.
Exactly. It might only take you 10 hours to build because you use Zapier and ChatGPT templates you already mastered.
So the math flips. You just made $200 an hour, and the business owner just made an $8,000 return on their investment in month 1. Everybody wins.
Yeah. Never sell hours. Sell the value of the outcome. You can also use package pricing where you offer a base tier, a standard tier, and a premium tier so the client feels like they have options. Or you use retainer pricing where they pay a flat monthly fee for ongoing access or system maintenance. But whatever model you choose, anchor your price to the financial size of the problem you are solving, not the clock ticking on your wall.
This is all incredibly cohesive. We have laid out the microeconomic reality that the market is ready. We have detailed the 3 specific business models: implementation, protected services, and enhanced traditional. We have given the listener the ruthless 5-point filter to vet their ideas. We walked through the 6-month timeline to pace the execution, and we just broke down the lean operational rules and value pricing to make it actually profitable. We have built the blueprint. But as we both know, knowledge without action is just intellectual entertainment.
It is entirely useless. If you just listen to this deep dive on your commute, nod your head, and say, wow, that's a really solid strategy. I should definitely try that someday when work calms down. Your single point of failure remains completely intact. The sword is still hanging over your head.
So we need to collapse the theory into reality.
Yeah.
How does the listener start today?
Yeah.
Right now? What is the actual, tangible, concrete next step when this audio finishes?
This is the 30-minute execution strategy. This is your specific assignment for this week, not next month, not after the holidays, this week.
Walk us through it, step by rigid step.
Step 1. Sit down for 10 minutes and brainstorm 3 side business ideas that hit all 5 of the launch criteria we discussed. Remember the filter. Low startup cost, flexible hours, leverages your existing skills, clear mathematical path to $2,000 a month, and scalable. Write down 3 specific ideas.
Okay, I have my 3 ideas on a piece of paper. Then what?
Step 2. Text 5 potential customers for each idea.
We just text them from my phone, not a formal designed email pitch with a slide deck.
Just a text or a casual, direct LinkedIn message. Keep the stakes low. Say something like, "Hey, Sarah, I'm currently exploring a concept around automating bookkeeping intake for freelance graphic designers. I know you run an agency. Is that data entry something you currently struggle with?" You are just testing the waters. That is 15 messages total across your 3 ideas. It will take you 10 minutes to send them.
Okay, the messages are out. What is step 3?
Step 3. Pick the winner. Look at the responses as they come in over the next day or 2. Which of the 3 ideas got the most immediate, visceral, "Oh my God, yes, please help me" response? That reaction is your validated vehicle. The market just chose your business for you.
Step 4.
Write down the names of the first 3 specific potential clients you actually want to work with. Very likely, these are the exact people who just enthusiastically validated the idea in your texts.
And the final step. Step 5.
Step 5. Commit to contacting those 3 specific people by next Friday. You reach back out and propose a beta price test project. You say, "Since you mentioned this is a huge pain point, I'm taking on 3 beta clients to build this system out. Would you want to be one of them for a discounted rate?"
This is brilliant because this is how you know it's real before you've spent a single dollar or built a single website. You are forcing the market to tell you the truth before you waste your precious weekends building something in a vacuum.
Exactly. Action collapses hypotheticals. You can sit in your office for 3 years wondering if an idea is good. The market will tell you the absolute truth in a Tuesday afternoon text thread if you just have the courage to ask.
I love that. Action collapses hypotheticals. Let's pull all of this together and bring it back to where we started. We started with the listener email, the project manager facing a corporate restructuring, staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., terrified about how to pay the mortgage. The goal of everything we have systematically broken down today isn't to turn that project manager into a Silicon Valley billionaire. The goal isn't to buy a Lamborghini. The goal isn't to get rich.
Not at all. That is the wrong metric for success here.
The goal is to take back control. When you are entirely dependent on one single company, one manager's mood, one quarterly earnings report, you are living in a state of foundational, terrifying vulnerability. But when you build this insurance policy, when you mathematically secure that $2,000 a month floor beneath you, your entire posture in life changes. Career resilience isn't something you just hope for or pray for. It is something you actively build.
And you build it methodically, logically, and relentlessly, using the exact tools that everyone else is afraid of.
So we want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over today as you go back to your day job. Look closely at your current 9 to 5. Look at your daily routines, the things you do on autopilot. What is the one specific, incredibly boring skill you use every single day? The complex spreadsheet formatting, the specific enterprise software troubleshooting, the vendor negotiation tactic, the way you organize a chaotic inbox. What is that one mundane thing you do absolutely effortlessly that someone else out there is currently pulling their hair out trying to figure out?
Because that mundane skill, that boring thing you take completely for granted, isn't just your job.
It is the exact premium for your new insurance policy. It's time to cash it in. Episode 18, The Future-Proof Mindset. This is the season finale. All the tactics in the world don't work without this foundation. See you next Monday. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Join us next time on Surviving AI.